Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Yemen just carried out an attack on the genocide state with a missile, a multi-warhead missile, alongside two other attacks on two parts of occupied Palestine. The multi-warhead missile landed in the Israeli Ben Gurion airport, and we had footage coming out from occupied Palestine confirming that there was indeed a landing with outright Israeli denial that anything effective happened following these strikes. So what happened exactly? Well, firstly, this was one of the videos that was published earlier on from occupied Palestine about this attack. So this was just one of the warheads that was documented because we still didn't have a lot of footage coming out. This was one of them. There was another video confirming how exactly the warhead started to split mid-air before landing, as we can see in this video over here. So we're talking about, according to Yemeni sources, a Palestine 2 missile. The Yemenis have been showing increasing capabilities with their missiles that they're launching, avoiding the Israeli defense systems, going above and below the atmosphere, releasing multiple warheads, making everything more difficult for Israel to take down these attacks coming from Yemen. So what did Yemen exactly target? So firstly, we've had a confirmation, a declaration from Yahya Sari', the spokesperson of Ansarullah, and the armed forces of Yemen. They declared that on the evening of Friday, they carried out two military operations. One of them targeted the Ben Gurion airport or Lud airport with a hypersonic ballistic missile. The second operation targeted occupied Jaffa and Asqalan or Ashkelon with two UAVs. And the armed forces also confirmed that the missile force of Yemen carried out these attacks with a Palestine 2 missile, the hypersonic missile, that also went through the Israeli interception systems, and that these attacks were successful. Millions of Zionists also went to shelters. The second operation, they said, the armed forces of Yemen, was against a military target, and the other one a strategic target in both Jaffa and Asqalan in occupied Palestine. And they also confirmed that these two operations were successful. These attacks, according to them, come as support for the oppressed Palestinian people and its glorious fighters, and as a response to the crimes of genocide and starvation that the Zionist occupation is conducting against the Palestinian people. And they, of course, said that we appreciate and value the sacrifice of the brave fighters inside of the Gaza Strip and how they're standing up against the enemies of the nation, and they sacrifice everything that they have to defend the honor of the nation and its dignity, and they're resisting the campaigns of expansionism coming from Israel. Again, another example, a prime example of how Yemen is the only country that's constantly opening its front against the Zionists. Now, right, some people are talking about embargo against Israel. How about you lift the embargo of the Palestinian resistance? How about that? Lift the embargo. Why do you have an embargo against the oppressed people? Why is there an embargo against the starving nation? and the nation that is starving them is allowed to receive everything. Lift the undeclared embargo and stop the garbage and nonsense about the Palestinian resistance. Please, do us a favor. Then, yes, of course, disarm Israel, carry out an operation, boycott, sanctions, stop everything, yes, but support the Palestinian people. Where are you? Where is everyone? Why is no one talking about the fact that not just the Palestinian people facing starvation? I'm going to get to the confirmation of the starvation that came now from a UN group and the statements that came, which is very important, significant. But why is no one talking about the fact that there's an undeclared embargo against the Palestinian resistance? Why? They are fighting a genocide. Arm them. You don't want to take military action against the genocide war criminal entity? Arm the Palestinian resistance. You see, the way that they're operating now, the Zionists and the imbeciles who follow that rhetoric, they're calling to disarm the Palestinian resistance. That's a way of deflection from confirming the fact that the Palestinian resistance has to be armed and has to be supported to confront this genocidal satanic entity butchering children. 5 children died in one massacre. 5 out of 12 in one massacre only, and 34 were martyred since the beginning of the day. Every single day, go to my X and look at the recent images coming from Gaza about the infants dying, 5-month-old babies starving, looking like skeletons because of an Israeli-imposed starvation campaign against the Palestinian people. Stop this nonsense. Don't talk. Either shut up or do what's necessary. We're sick of your statements. We're sick of everyone. We're sick of the Arab and Muslim states and sick of the hypocrite Western leaders as well and Western establishments talking about all of this nonsense and recognizing a Palestinian state. Shut up and take action. Countries who you didn't like, you immediately sent your armies over there to destroy them because based on nothing, for the sake of Israel, actually. What Iraq, what WMD is nothing. They went and they destroyed them. Other countries too. A country committing a genocide in broad daylight in 2025. You monsters. You criminal monsters. Everyone supporting this and everyone not standing up and everyone's you criminal monster. How can you allow them to get away with that? Lift all of this all of these sanctions against the Palestinian side. Not just allow the people to live and breathe and eat. No, they need to be supported more. So Yemen, thankfully, they're standing up. And they're going to continue to stand up. But this was a really good blow. Why? It's because it was successful and there was a confirmation from inside of occupied Palestine that the missile landed. In case you're joining me now, this is the moment when the missile actually landed. What are they exactly, how are they going to explain that, right? The Israeli media was saying now, oh, we intercepted a missile that came from Yemen successfully. There were sirens heard, and there was an explosion from a fragment of a missile or from the interception systems. And yeah, we took it down. And to hide any potential other damage, by the way, they're saying that there have been some accidents, right? There have been some accidents happening. And as time is going by, they're confirming now that the Israeli police is actively working in multiple parts that had strikes, so they're confirming strikes now in Tel Aviv, in the Tel Aviv area. Okay. This is coming now following significant developments. These significant developments are the confirmation now, blatant confirmation from a UN group confirming that there is famine in Gaza officially. Now they're officially saying there's famine in Gaza. As of 15 August 2025, famine IPC Phase 5 with reasonable evidence is confirmed in Gaza Governorate. After 22 months of relentless conflict, over 500,000 people in the Gaza Strip are facing catastrophic conditions characterized by starvation, destitution, and death. Another 1.07 million people, 54%, are in emergency or IPC Phase 4, and 396,000 people, or 20%, are in crisis. So the mildest form of starvation in Gaza and famine is crisis. It says a lot, really. Between mid-August and the end of September 25, conditions are expected to further worsen, with famine projected to expand to Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis. Nearly a third of the population, or 641,000 people, are expected to face catastrophic conditions, IPC Phase 5, while those in emergency, IPC Phase 4, will likely rise to 1.14 million, or 58% of the population. Acute malnutrition is projected to continue worsening rapidly. Through June 26, at least 132,000 children under 5 are expected to suffer from acute malnutrition, double the IPC estimates from May 2025. This includes over 41,000 severe cases of children at heightened risk of death. Nearly 55,500 malnourished pregnant and breastfeeding women will also require urgent nutrition response. Despite limited data, conditions in North Gaza Governorate are estimated to be as severe or worse than in Gaza Governorate. And for the first time as well, they're confirming that this is a man-made starvation campaign and famine happening inside of Gaza, and not just, all of a sudden, there's starvation and we don't know how, like some Western leaders were telling you, oh, there's starvation because there was failure for aid to go in somehow, without, of course, addressing who the culprit is, right? Because they're complicit, they're participant too. There was also a statement coming from Undersecretary General for the Humanitarian Affairs of the United Nations, Tom Fletcher. Let's hear what he had to say in this short statement that he had earlier on.
It is a famine, the Gaza famine. It is a famine that we could have prevented if we had been allowed. Yet food stacks up at borders because of systematic obstruction by Israel. It is a famine within a few hundred meters of food in a fertile land. It is a famine that hits the most vulnerable first, each with a name, each with a story, that strips people of dignity before it strips them of life, that forces a parent to choose which child to feed, that forces people to risk their lives to seek food. It is a famine that we repeatedly warned of, but that the international media has not been allowed in to cover, to bear witness. It is a famine in 2025, a 21st century famine, watched over by drones and the most advanced military technology in history. It is a famine openly promoted by some Israeli leaders as a weapon of war. It is a famine on all of our watch. Everyone owns this. The Gaza famine is the world's famine.
So strong words, again, coming from the United Nations, and they're confirming that there's a famine. They're saying that things are going to get worse, catastrophic, diabolical scenarios happening, and it's only projected to increase. What kind of scenario are we looking at exactly? Well, the scenario that we're looking at, firstly, it's happening now. Infants, elderly, normal people are dying of starvation every single day. They are being murdered by this Israeli imposed famine on the civilians inside of the Gaza Strip. And Israel, by the way, they ran out of excuses now. So do you know what the excuse is now, or what the criticism is? This is slander. This is blood libel. This is anti-Semitism. The confirmation from a UN organization saying that there are children starving to death and there's a catastrophic situation is anti-Semitism. Wow. That's the last thing. They're not even addressing things professionally. The United Nations is telling them this is a man-made starvation campaign, and you are not allowing the aid in when there are trucks all around. This guy who resigned from the GHF, do you know what he said? The guy who was criticizing when Israel killed the boy that kissed his hand, forgot his name. He said that the GHF ordered Domino's pizza from Israel to eat inside of the Gaza Strip, and some of the people who actually had something good delivered the pizza to some of the Palestinians who were kind of working with them or helping them, according to him. So you can order pizza, if you're GHF, to Gaza from Israel, but receive it at the borders if you have an entry in that is controlled by Israel. There is no other way to explain this but a Zionist-imposed starvation campaign against the Palestinian people in a hope and in a move to eliminate them and wipe them off the face of the earth. Israel wants to kill the 2 million. And if they're not going to kill them by arms and weapons and missiles, they will kill them, and they are killing them with famine. And this report is a stark warning, again, to the whole world. Wake up. Really, wake up. Okay? And please stop selling us nonsense. You know, I heard some of the statements coming today from global leaders and Arab leaders too. Oh, there's been a failure from the international community to apply pressure on Israel and have a deterrence and this and that. What did you do? What did you do? You have power. The people sitting in their homes, what do they have? A keyboard, a phone, a camera? What can we do? 2 legs to go out and protest? You in power, they have the means. They have economic leverage. They have financial leverage. They have diplomatic leverage. They have military leverage. Yet they do nothing whatsoever. And thankfully, some officials from the United Nations are saying it as it is. This is our starvation camp, the world's starvation, what happens in Gaza. Okay, what is the United States saying? And what is Donald Trump saying? Donald Trump is busy calling Benjamin Netanyahu a war hero, ladies and gentlemen, and he's saying, I guess I am too. He had an interview with the Mark Levin show where he was talking about Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi is a good man. He's in there fighting. He's fighting, you know. They're trying to put him in jail on top of everything else. How about that? He's a war hero because we work together. He's a war hero. I guess I am too. Your president, America, calling the wanted war criminal a war hero. And really, I mean, for those who still have that excuse of this 4D chess game or 5D chess game that Trump is playing, please spare us. The man is butchering children. Trump himself said that there is starvation in Gaza and that children are dying. And he's calling Benjamin Netanyahu a war hero. That's the sentiment coming from the United States. What does that mean? Well, Netanyahu, if he desires, he can go on. He can go on and that's it. Unless someone, again, unless there's significant military action to dismantle this Zionist regime, they'll still commit murders and crimes. Military intervention was required 70 years before the 2023. Now it's even more pressing because there is no other option. And no suppression of mainstream media or social media of any popular campaigns is going to help. It isn't going to help. The global population demands military action against Israel. That is the only solution. And if you don't want to participate directly, lift the undeclared abhorrent embargo against the Palestinian resistance. Lift it. Support these people. They are the people who are starving. But there were interesting revelations coming as well, not just from not just Donald Trump saying that Netanyahu is a war hero. It's always interesting to hear the American officials when they finish their job, when they no longer are dogs on chains, or they become dogs on a slightly looser chain when they leave their job from the White House. Listen to Matthew Miller. Matthew Miller, pathological liar. We used to see his ugly face every single day, spewing venom and lies and supporting Israel 24/7. We know this man, an abhorrent, despicable liar, pathological war criminal. We know who he is. Anyway, he's feeling more at liberty now to talk, and start criticizing and what have you. He had criticism talking about the war crimes all of a sudden. When he was covering up the worst crimes, this man, his face will forever be remembered as the defender of Satan. I mean, even the defender of Satan is cleaner than him. But what is he saying now? He's saying that Netanyahu told us that that was when he was with Biden, by the way. So at least over 8 months ago. Netanyahu told us that he intends to continue the war for decades and was imposing conditions when we sought a deal. The Israeli government has been obstructing the ceasefire and setting new demands. War for decades. And what the inaction of the Western countries and the Arab countries and everyone not using their leverage to stop the genocide is doing is basically buying Israel more time. They are whitewashing the genocide because if it's happening in front of your eyes, you have the capacity to do something and you're not. You are complicit. You have blood on your hands. So don't tell me, international community, what are you doing? You're a country, you're a state. You're not an individual raising a banner in the street or, stop the war or, on X and what have you. And even some of these people are hunted down. And Miller, by the way, when he's asked, okay, well, why didn't you say this when you were in power? Why didn't you say this when you were with the Biden administration? He was like, yeah, we wouldn't have been able to say that, we would lose our job and, kind of wouldn't work. Oh, how cute. So you see a genocide and children being butchered in front of your face and you can't say that. And all of a sudden now they're trying to portray themselves as saints. But what I wanted to get here is the actual statement that he made that Netanyahu is preparing for war for decades. So we could be looking at something far bigger than what we're seeing so far. even if we see a temporary ceasefire or no temporary ceasefire. And what is this resonating with, by the way? Assuming, of course, Netanyahu, if he has a big plan to kind of continue up until the elections, and he is planning to win the elections and then continue an endless cycle of war/wars. Okay? This is resonating with the initial statements that came from Israel. Netanyahu himself and Yoav Gallant as well, the second wanted war criminal in Israel, that this war could take 10 years, they said, at the time. And then they started to kind of change the tone slightly. But Netanyahu, he spoke about Greater Israel. He has a spiritual connection to the concepts of Greater Israel. It's going to take them some time to implement, isn't it? Now, the Israeli Minister of Communications said that the West and the East Bank belong to Israel. West and East Bank belong to Israel. So not just the West Bank, the East Bank too. What's the East Bank? Jordan. Jordan came up with, of course, a condemnation. Jordan condemns the statements that the banks of the Jordan River are part of the land of Israel. What is that going to change anything? What's more significant are the statements of the Israeli Minister of Communications, Netanyahu, government official. The East Bank is part of Israel. Stop BSing people and telling me condemn. This is a declaration of war against you. This is an outright declaration of war. What are you waiting for? What was Egypt waiting for? What are all of them waiting for? Lebanon, Syria, what are all of you waiting for? They're declaring war against all of you. And they're saying it outright. And the more they say it, by the way, this is what these stupid leaders on the other side don't get. Israel is building a momentum. They're building a momentum. They're preparing the mindset. They're prepping the grounds. Oh, it's ours. And Greater Israel, yeah. And yeah, more land here and there. And yeah, of course. Didn't he tell you that he's going to change the shape of the Middle East from the beginning? Netanyahu? Okay. You might say Jordan, and that's not enough. All right. But we did hear that Jordan is having a few moves now that they haven't done in the past 3 decades. And that move is mandatory military service. Okay? For the first time in 33 years. Jordan is saying that it's conscription. That's it. We need to have conscription for the military. We're facing a different scenario here. Why? Well, we hope that they understand that this is a declaration of war, so they're making some sort of a move. But haven't you thought this out before you were preventing Iranian missiles from landing against on Israel, on occupied Palestine, the genocide entity? Were you not thinking? You were helping Israel take down Iranian missiles and putting Jordanians' lives at risk. So even this talk about conscription isn't enough. None of what they're doing is enough. Everything is a reaction. Plus, probably the majority of your military will be deactivated by the same powers who support Israel. Where do you buy your fighter jets from? As if the Arab states manufacture anything to do with the military. Hardly anything. They buy most of it as protection from the United States or other countries that are totally aligned with Israel. But isn't that a wake-up call? I mean, even puppet regimes are in danger now. Imagine how awful it is to be a puppet and lose. If you were resisting and you were toppled, as in genuinely resisting, not like fake resisting, like some leaders do, really. and then you were overthrown or what, you will be remembered in history. I opposed them, I stood up against them, that's why, and I lost. Or I was, my government or establishment was taken down. But being a puppet and allowing them to have food and passing money and all of that, buying them time, and then collapsing, how shameful is that? What a sad state of affairs, to be remembered in history as a traitor who fell. Oh, who's going to remember you? Isn't that shameful? Wake up. Wake up. They're coming for you. He's coming for you. Netanyahu's coming for you. His minister is now telling you the east of the West Bank, basically West Bank and East Bank, both sides of the Jordan River, they belong to us. Wake up. Didn't they say similar things about Sinai? Another minister over a year ago in Israel, there was a campaign, just take back Sinai. Ministers in the government. And condemnations, again, coming from Egypt. Okay, there are military preparations, higher intensity from Egypt, but again, just condemnations. What are these condemnations going to do? These condemnations are not going to do jack. What you need is action. That is it. There is no way out. What you need is military intervention to stop this genocide and to demilitarize the Zionist establishment, dismantle Israel as an apartheid entity, boycott sanctions, and support the Palestinian liberation and support the Palestinian resistance. Stop this undeclared embargo. From the beginning, by the way, this whole labeling of the Palestinian resistance a deliberate campaign. And they've been telling you that Israel had a right to defend itself. Remember in the early days? Israel has a right to exist. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has. Why do they reiterate this garbage in your mind? To control you, to manipulate you. We're 2 years into a genocide, and we have a report now confirming that people are about to die. People will be dying in larger numbers if this humanitarian catastrophe is going to be allowed to continue. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? But I mean, again, on the other side, I guess the people and the leaders who weren't moved by the scenes in 2023, when 1,000 were being killed a day, when babies were being butchered, what is going to change now with them? That's another argument here. So that shows you that there's a prospect that this might continue, and we'll see the numbers in broad daylight in front of our eyes, unless significant action is going to be taken immediately. And no talk is enough, by the way. This talk, we're tired of talking. We're tired of talking. The fact that the United Nations and its organizations are taking these steps, good. But these proposals, like the proposal that came from the Irish president to bypass the Security Council, revoke certain clauses and resolutions in the UN, to take action because there are war crimes happening, all of that, what are we waiting for? What are you waiting for? They think that by ignoring for a very long time and legitimizing and brainwashing, that they will be able to kind of normalize the situation. No, it's never going to be normalized. One drop of blood from an innocent civilian will never be something normal, let alone tens of thousands. And now a recent report came that the IDF knew and they verified that 83% of the victims in Gaza during the Gaza genocide are from the civilians. 83%. IDF. Even The Guardian published that. The Guardian, you know, those who act like they're, you know, on the right side, but are not really, you know. Even they published that. So stop the talk, really. I mean, enough talking. Enough talking, we need action. And these were the main things that I want to share with you in this live stream, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in. Dino, Pant Lucas, Glenn Huxley, Palestine, Michael McIntyre, Michael Paul, and Marvin Vergas. Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you, everyone, as well, for joining in. Marvin, you said, and hello, everyone, and thank you again. Marvin, you said you hear they captured 3 IDF soldiers. No, that wasn't confirmed. There was no confirmation that 3 IDF soldiers were captured, but there were several reports yesterday that the Palestinian resistance tried to imprison more Israeli terrorists in Gaza. And that's why they started to take it seriously. In Israel, they're saying that, you know, this campaign was like another 7th of October, and Hamas are sending us signs that we are able to conduct something like this at a much larger scale if you go into this Gaza operation. And listen, this has an effect. It has an effect mentally on this already destroyed army, what's called the IDF, or the large terror organization. The largest terrorist organization in the Middle East or West Asia is called the Israeli Defense Forces. How about you label them and boycott them? So they're worried. They're very worried. And listen, Israelis all across the world are suffering because of their government. Anywhere they're going, they're not being served. The people are refusing to deal with them. Rightfully so, because the problem is, if you're coming from Israel, you need to prove your innocence. Do you understand? And I think governments are taking it way too lightly. Really, way too lightly. Anyone coming out from that country could either be, and let's not confirm anything, but could either be a pedophile or a war criminal. And these two things are serious. Yet what we have is the United States catching pedophiles in action, but sending them back to Israel because they're related to Benjamin Netanyahu. You saw this report a few days back, if you didn't hear about it. Donald Trump allowed a senior Netanyahu aide to go back from the United States, has a top figure in cybersecurity and something to do with the IDF. Pedophile. Send him back to Israel. No wonder it's a pedophile hub of the world. You see? But there was no confirmation that this actually took place, this kidnapping, unless, of course, the Palestinian resistance come to us with like a surprise and they declare that they actually did something. Then of course that would be a different story. And listen, they warned Israel that might happen. They're actively, you know, working on getting another prisoner of war, and that if they do that, the thing is, it will be so catastrophical for Netanyahu, even internally, because they're, you know, people are already telling him, you're killing the people. You're killing the Israelis over there, the prisoners of war. Hell, one of his ministers yesterday, I spoke about in the previous video, said, I vow to continue the war even if it kills the hostages, or what they call the hostages. And please don't take like every word that I quote people as if I'm saying it. You know, I'll hear some people saying, oh, why do you call this a war? Why do you call them hostages? I'm quoting people sometimes, you know, relax. It's a genocide and these are prisoners of war. You know me. But anyway, she said she wanted to kill them, vowed to kill them. Now, if the Palestinian resistance succeed in grabbing another child murderer, to the tunnels, it's going to have a big impact on Israel. Gullyberg, Mahmoud, a plane with Russian officials landed in Tel Aviv yesterday. What do you think that's about, evacuating their embassy? Thank you for that, Gully, my friend. I think I actually didn't hear that report, but the ties weren't cut between Israel and Russia. Never. And they continued with talks. Israel has over 1.3 million people who came from the previous Soviet Union. Listen, most of them claim to be Jews, but not all of them are Jews. But Israel said, okay, you say you're Jew, come anyway. We need the numbers. We need to be a Jewish supremacy with a large Jewish majority. But they never cut ties with them, so there's nothing surprising there. Even when there were like 10 statements coming from both sides, even when some of the Likud members last year, they had a lot of talks, the talks never cut. But what could have been a recent, talk between the two delegations would potentially be about some sort of a settlement happening, or what they call now the day after the war. That seems like it's an endless war now, or a genocide. And Israel is also linked to what's happening between Russia and Ukraine too. You see, the Russians criticized Israel heavily for, not picking side. Zelensky was also upset with them for not blatantly supporting Ukraine too. And Russia is involved in some of the mediation talks to an extent, not as an active, heavy influencer, but rather taking an advisory role. And they also, don't forget, they tried to have these meetings between the Palestinian factions to bring the Palestinian sides together. But both meetings in Russia and in China failed because of the Palestinian Authority led by the Palestinian president Abu Mazen's position in not agreeing on a strategic vision for the future, because he's a Zionist puppet. It didn't work. So they are still involved, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have a bigger role than what is actually portrayed. Because listen, ever since there were de-escalation talks, things started to be tied together. Trump, when he was promising to end everything, he's going to end the war in one day. 8 months, what have you been doing, Mr. Trump? He approved money for Ukraine, by the way. Do you know that? As in, not for Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, don't get me wrong, for Zelensky to continue the war machine. Zelensky was about to reach a deal with Putin in 2022. Bojo and Biden told him, no, go to war and we'll help you. Because they wanted to make money out of the blood of both Ukrainians and Russians. McGee's saying, what happening to the Indonesian troops that are supposed to go to Gaza? This was a humanitarian mission, and that report that came out that time spoke about the possibility that some of the Indonesian troops could be part of a peacekeeping force inside of the Gaza Strip after there's a ceasefire. Now, listen, there are talks, and we heard that many times, talks and, advanced stage. But Netanyahu is outright saying, I'm going to continue up until I eliminate Hamas now, as in, disarm them completely. Stephen Kelly, what's stopping Iran flattening Zayoviv? I don't know. I mean, Israel was supposed to, if you had a real solid position coming from either Iran or another country that has, guts we will flatten you if you continue the genocide, they wouldn't have. So I tell you, I don't know, because really and truly, I don't know all of the details. I have certain assumptions. My assumptions are Iran isn't interested in completely and fully participating unless it's absolutely necessary for it. And that's why its strategy was to surround Israel with a ring of fire and support resistance movements here and there. But they have to kind of participate when it's needed. They have their internal calculations, they have their financial calculations, they have their public opinion calculations. If they go on a war that they would start, as in it would be viewed as them starting it, although they have the full legitimacy by a human, divine, and international law to have a preemptive strike on Israel. But internally, you know, some people, especially with the opposition, will have an argument like, we didn't give you the mandate to go to war, why are you going to war? And having this economic pressure on us and this and that. But when they wait for Israel to attack them, and Israel does attack them, then they respond. The opposition becomes even more supportive of its country, because that's what's so stupid, by the way, about Israel and the United States. They thought that they can bring this little dictator, the son of the Shah, the Zionist bootlicker, to go and rule Iran after they take down the supreme leader. And they tried to take him down. They tried to take down the president and the speaker of the parliament, and they have national security. And they failed. They succeeded with some other figures, but they failed. As a matter of fact, you started to hear Iranian opposition telling you, listen, I'm not with the government, but I support my country. You see? And then Netanyahu had to beg for Trump to intervene. And that's how the Iranian establishment came out victorious, internally, at least in Iran. And for them, Iran matters most before the public opinion. The Iranian establishment leaders, they're primarily concerned with Iran, by the way, then with other countries and causes and what have you. But they don't really care what the world thinks about them, you know, unlike some of the Arab regimes, you know. Oh, they want to be liked and accepted and this and that. No, Iran, we're us. This is who we are. This is our identity. Agree or disagree with them, but they have pride in their identity and how they conduct everything. But saying all of that, there are now voices coming out from the establishment, as in from the IRGC and senior advisors to the supreme leader, to have a preemptive strike. Like you saw Rahim Safawi, what he said. As a senior advisor to Khamenei, he said, another war is very likely, in those words, but after that war there may not be another war. Those are strong statements that send messages like there might be another war soon, and there also might be no other war after it. Why? Because we were planning to wipe them, to completely eliminate them. So that's becoming more common now. And listen, if Iran started an all-out attack against Israel today, the whole world will be celebrating. I mean, people were asking Iran to continue all across the world. Why didn't you finish the job? Why didn't you please finish the job? Please continue. Iran has the global support. Iran has the popular support. People were celebrating Israel getting attacked and bombarded, and they weren't giving any sympathy to Israel because of the levels of barbaric crimes they've been and still are committing in Gaza. No sympathy whatsoever, no talk. As in, even Israel didn't have any excuse. When a place near a hospital was attacked in Israel, no one said anything apart from, well done, Iran. And they were embedded there with how they blamed the Palestinians of doing. IDF unit embedded there next to the Soroka hospital. So I think it's very likely to happen, and next time it's going to be even more lethal. And Iran is going to introduce more missiles. They've been showing us more missiles recently. They showed a new missile recently, one of their strongest reported as well. Qasim Basir, it's called, and other missiles too. Very strong technology. And mind you, if Israel found it problematic, you know, taking down those previous missiles, what are they going to do with the next round? And Marvin, what about the Second Freedom Flotilla? Knight Malouf suggests a blockade in the Mediterranean instead. A blockade, sanctions, military action, everything is required. And there are more talks about a 1,000 boat flotilla. That would be something good and significant. You know, 1, 2, 3,000 flotillas, just people taking boats from everywhere and going. How much is Israel going to do? Or are they going to start killing everyone? I mean, everyone who's going is prepared to die, trust me, whether they're coming from Europe or from the United States. But it's going to prove to be problematic for them. TMZBG, I saw a report that Egypt is on high alert. Do you think the blackmail to cut Egyptian ties between Israel and Israel is working? Well, Egypt has been on high alert. With the blackmail things, you know, it depends on how deep all of the blackmail reports go. Do you know what I mean? I saw some of those videos of certain opposition or anonymous people, you know, talking about certain things. But again, it depends on how much truth there is there. The Egyptian authorities are panicking, indeed, because they're arresting people globally protesting against their consulates and embassies. That's a big sign of weakness, pathetic sign of weakness. But in terms of military preparation, they are prepared. Not that they want to participate in a war. No, Egypt has been sitting on the side, witnessing a genocide and starvation and doing nothing for the past 2 years. So they're not interested. Sisi is not going to go into a war. This man already killed his own people, and he has thousands of political prisoners. Unless, again, something, you know, very, very dramatic happens. People who did not move when the initial massacres happened aren't going to move now. Unless their authority or crown is under threat. Maybe then. They just renewed a deal. Egypt and Israel just had a new deal. $35 billion gas deal. So there are no significant signs that that's changing. And listen, that doesn't mean that preparation and readiness and threat are not there. That doesn't mean that Israel doesn't view Egypt as a potential threat, an even bigger threat than other countries do, even other countries as well. But from what we're seeing now, there is no prospect. I mean, there have been like escalating statements coming from like the Egyptian foreign minister, you know, blaming Israel outright for the lack of peace, right? You know, he said the Israelis used to always say there is no Palestinian peace partner, but now what we have been seeing is that there is no Israeli partner. So, and again, the question is, what are you going to do about it? Like, listen, condemnations, we've had enough of that. We're sick of it. We call on the international community. We're concerned. Shut the hell up. You've been concerned for 2 years and people are being, but shut up. Don't tell me you're concerned. It's worrying, and we call on de-escalation. And trust me, if that doesn't happen, if no decisive action is taken, you will see more popular moves from the public to take thousands of boats into the Gaza Strip. If not by land, then by sea. If not by sea, by land, and any other means. masses of drones, people using drones globally and using them to send aid to Gaza or send support to the Gazan people. Imagine 1 million drones going to Gaza from multiple countries. And some of the talks that are happening are the 1,000 to 2,000 boats and the drones. Think about the drones. The Egyptians, some of the Egyptian people, what did they do? They started to send things in water bottles to float through the sea and go off the shores of Gaza. So yeah, if this isn't going to stop, I think the global popular action and this global popular revolution to support human rights and confront tyranny and resist oppression and racism and supremacy and support justice and equality, I think it will only escalate. And it will only do more things so long as the authorities are complicit and acting like they're not. And we'll wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. Thank you for everyone who participated in the chat. Thank you for everyone who sent supers. Much appreciated. I appreciate your support. Marvin, Michael, ×3, Palestine, Glenn, and Dino. In the meantime, we'll hopefully have segments later on for you. I'll be with you tomorrow either with a live stream or a video, hopefully. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Stay blessed, free, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.